For Nerds, by Nerds. I'm Nerdicus Steve, and today I'm joined by Shane from Ancient Lair. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm good, thanks, Dave. Yourself?
Good. So, you're from the company Ancient Lair, and you guys kind of make like accessories to go along with with gaming. I want to say D&D, but I mean I guess it could be kind of generic, since they're accessories and they're not mechanically driven.
Yeah, so we take a lot of inspiration from especially Dungeons and Dragons. So we've run a couple of previous Kickstarters that are based around some of the most popular settings, or some of
Yeah.
our favorite settings, at least, like Curse of Strahd, or Tyranny of Dragons, and like medals inspired by Tiamat, or that kind of thing. So yeah, we definitely take a lot of inspiration from D&D specifically.
Yeah, the first Kickstarter you guys did was the you did the dungeon displays, which was pretty cool. Um, and basically it's like a little kind of like a diorama setting for your minis, uh,
Yeah.
which is something that kind of came into my peripheral a couple years ago, or maybe it was last year when I was a DM at D&D in a castle, and one of the players was a returning player, and he was actually doing like a bunch of the rounds. So he had gotten one of them made in order to display all of his D&D in a castle miniatures that he would get. So it's kind of like a cool idea to commemorate a campaign that you ran, that you're to succession, or or a favorite character.
That's it. So it was the idea sprung from a Curse of Strahd campaign that a friend was running, and we had played it for quite a while. And we were all into our 3D miniatures and stuff like that. So we spent a lot of time painting them and whatnot. So I just wanted to create something to kind of commemorate the campaign, the characters, and a number of characters, because a couple of us had died a few times. And I started kit bashing it together and kind of making something myself, but not being as talented as some of the people that we worked with. I just kind of it steamrolled into something a little bit bigger, and we got a couple of friends and people on board, and yeah, we managed to produce an epic dungeon display, which was successful on Kickstarter, and I think we had around 60 or so orders around the world that we shipped out, and some people have done some good stuff with it.
So have you always kind of been into like accessories like that around the game? Do they get see a lot of use at your table?
Yeah, definitely. So our table is a mix mash of old school and new school. So some of us have things like tablets and Microsoft Pros and stuff like that. Others have the old pen and paper. And we just before the end of last year, we transferred an old monitor that we had into our kind of battle mat. We put it flat on the side and loaded up Roll20 on it, and use a kind of a mixture of virtual and physical. So that's really cool to see. But yeah, we've always used miniatures and terrain when we can, to really kind of bring life the battlefields and the game. I think anything that you can have physically in real life just enhances the experience and really gives it a good a good atmosphere, especially things like, I don't know, even little silly things like lighting, or music, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean it's getting easier and easier to incorporate that stuff into our games with with technology. So you also did campaign medals. That was the last Kickstarter you guys did.
Yeah.
And what was first of all, what is that for people that don't know? And then we can talk about like the inspiration for it.
Sure. So campaign medals are essentially these small medals that are inspired by D&D adventures or campaigns or themes that you would normally see in a kind of standard fantasy setting. And the idea behind it was to either hand this out to the players or the DM at the end of a campaign to commemorate, to be a commemorative collector's piece, essentially, that you could display or show your friends, or use within the game. We use them for inspiration tokens sometimes. I know a couple of people have used them for like currency, or like in-game, NPC gives the characters a medal or an item or an artifact, something like that. So there's many kind of uses for them. I've got one here actually, just so people can see. So this is the one that we made, that was inspired from the Rise of Tiamat campaigns. Not sure if it's going off there. And we've done ones for Strahd, we've done ones for the Storm King's Thunder and all that kind of stuff. And it was again another successful Kickstarter that kind of got a lot of people involved and interested in it. And a lot of people 3D printing them as well, which we've seen some great paint jobs on. And again, it just gives that kind of atmospheric feel to the campaign, having this cool dragon medal given to you by somebody for defeating Tiamat or something like that is just a cool thing to really draw people into.
Do you have a favorite out of the lot?
Oh, that's tricky. We spent a lot of time working on all of them, but I think the dragon medals probably just pips it. But yeah, they're all great.
Yeah, the Tiamat one really stuck out for me as well. There was a lot, especially with some of the paint jobs that were done as well.
Yeah, we work with Craftworld Studios a number of times on our Kickstarters when we do physical things, and they're fantastic. They're a couple that work out of Romania, I think it is. But their stuff is unbelievable. Their use of color in their miniature paintings. If you're into that kind of thing, it's definitely worth checking out at Craftworld Studios on Instagram, because they produce some just mind-bending stuff.
So during the apocalypse, I pretty much ask everyone this. So are you guys gaming the same, more or less?
So I think we're probably gaming roughly the same. Our group plays every Monday. But we've just transferred to obviously digital play now. So we get on Roll20 in Discord and just have our fun that way. So it's a bit different. It took a while to get used to. And you still talk over people sometimes when you can't hear them and you have those awkward moments. But yeah, no, we're probably gaming the same, if not slightly more.
Yeah, I find for some groups it's like more people are available, so they find themselves gaming more. Or for people kind of like in my position where like we're pretty much always available, but everyone else's schedule isn't quite as flexible. Their schedules are becoming a bit more flexible, so there's more people to game with.
Definitely, and people maybe aren't going out as much in the evenings and stuff as when we tend to play. So yeah, I'm sure there's more availability out there for people.
So what are you guys playing through now?
So I'm currently running the Descent into Avernus campaign. So when we do our kind of a lot of our groups that we run tend to revolve around the published adventures, and then we kind of take that as a base and kind of add pockets of homebrew and stuff to it, just because that's how we prefer to kind of set the games up. It gives you a good kind of basis, and we pick and choose what we like from the adventures, and they tend to be a good, easy and quite fast way to prep for the sessions. So we've run quite a few of the adventures like that. But yeah, the Avernus campaign is decent. I think there's a couple of people in the group, and myself included, that are looking forward to Baldur's Gate 3. So I think there was a lot of interest in seeing how that might potentially tie in.
A dungeon display for Avernus would probably be pretty cool.
Yeah, I hesitate to think what that would be, but yeah, lots of flames and melty rocks would be a good one.
Maybe a war machine or two.
War machines would be good, yeah, with loads of like demons and devils kind of scrabbling up at the side of it and stuff. It would be good.
So do you play the pre-written adventures in your own worlds, or do you use one of the existing campaign settings?
Yeah, so we normally just use Faerun as the kind of standard setting, and then things like Avernus, it doesn't take you to many places.
Yeah.
You've pretty much got Baldur's Gate and a couple of surrounding cities, and then Avernus itself. But it's relatively self-contained. Whereas when we've done like Storm King's Thunder, obviously you have a lot more breadth of room to move around. So we've been playing since basically 5th edition came out. And I know there's a couple of guys in the group that are working on some like homebrew worlds. So I'm sure we'll get around to that at some point.
So are you usually the GM?
I've done a couple of campaigns. So I've done the Avernus one. I actually ran our first ever campaign, which was the Mines of Fendelver, which was always interesting when you run your first games. The chaos of it is always hilarious. But no, we take it in turns normally.
Is that the first game ever you ran?
Mines of Fendelver was the first game ever, yeah.
Oh, nice. So you're fairly new to the hobby then.
Yeah. Not too long. Maybe like 4 or 5 years, something like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not super new, I guess. It's all relative. Um,
Yeah, but new to compared to some veterans like yourself. Yeah.
you can just say you're just old, Dave. You're just old.
But no, we a lot of us got listening to, and I think this is had a massive impact on the popularity of a Critical Role.
Mm,
We listened to a couple, and then there was a couple of friends that just kind of mentioned it. So we gave it a go. But yeah, the first game is always oh yeah, I'll never forget the chaos of it. It was when you give new players the ultimate freedom to do what they want in a town,
yeah.
they tend to go a bit power crazy.
A little bit. Well, so how did it come about that you were going to be the GM?
We just decided, and I like I said, I've been listening to some podcasts, and I kind of knew the rules, how the combat works, how the
Yeah.
flow of the game should be. So I just kind of put my name in the hat, and we just kind of decided to run with it. After that, we did a couple of other campaigns, dipping our toes into other little bits as well. So it's been good.
That's great because you always hear a lot of stories about people who are like agonizing on whether they should GM for the first time or not. So and they've been playing for years. So I always find it really cool and kind of gratifying when a new player comes in and they start the game by running it.
Yeah, I mean that's the idea of the storytelling behind it was something that I just loved. The idea of bringing all these weird, creepy, strange characters to life is great. And I think the group that we play with, a lot of our fun comes from the role playing aspect of it. So really interacting with these characters, the world, and the places in it. Um, and so we're not the kind of classic dungeon delvers, just combat. We like to kind of really have those fleshed out characters and get into the game that way. So I think over the 4 or 5 years we've played, we've got a lot better at that, and definitely some weird voices and characters have come out of it for sure. But you just got to throw yourself in at the end of the day, and I think if you throw yourself at it, 9 times out of 10 it works out all right.
So you've mentioned you do a lot of modding with the official content. How long were you running before you were like, oh, you know what, I can change this stuff and kind of make it my own?
Um, Probably within the first game. So there's lots of things that either don't make sense in Fendelver. I found the
Mhm.
story um, to be a bit lackluster and how it connects up. So we changed a couple of aspects there, and basically just trying to make things a little bit more epic for the first campaign. I wanted it to be a bit more grand. Than just guys go to a small mining town and kill a crazy mage. So yeah, and not it's not to say that it all worked, but there was definitely times where it didn't. But yeah, I think we realized very early on that you have the freedom to do and change what you want, and if you just kind of improvise, and you can make a lot of good fun moments happen.
Nice. Kudos to your group and you for figuring that out rather quickly. I because you still like you'll see on Twitter and stuff people asking Jeremy Crawford. They're always asking for permission to change the game and do things their own way. And it's like, I mean, it says it right in the rule books. Make the game your own. Do what you
Yeah, and,
want.
and I think that's one of the rules that we live by, is that we take them as kind of the basis for how the game should run, and then we just go from there. So if someone wants, and I always say to new people that come and played with a couple of groups, is try not to take your character sheet as you have to use an action to do this, or you have to use a bonus action to do this. Like, just explain what you want to do. If you want to do a backflip off the chandelier and then do a diving punch under some guy, let's go for it, and we can work how that works out. And again, like I said, not it doesn't always work, but I think that having the freedom to not limit yourself to a character sheet too much really opens up the game.
Yeah, I just ran a fan game over the weekend, and one of the players kept just asking to do different stuff, and I love it when players do that when they kind of ignore their character sheet. Like they're in a kitchen, and I was like, "Is there any pots on the stove?" I'm like, "Yeah," and it's boiling. Yeah, so if they want to do more things, I would rather have them come up with crazy stuff, and we'll figure out how the rules work later, as we
That's it.
go.
That's it. And like you said, the characters and the players are encouraged to pick up, um, to kind of create the world themselves. Like I said, there's probably pots and pans around in the kitchen, so
Yeah,
you don't have to ask permission for it. Just pick one up.
yeah,
So we kind of work together to create the environment and the battle. Obviously, if they say, oh, a Vorpal sword appears in my hand,
yeah.
oh yeah, go calm down, guys, you're going a bit too crazy. But yeah, we tend to just kind of go back and forth with each other, and I think it works for us.
Yeah. So do you have a like most memorable, crazy um, improv thing that has come up in your game?
Um, Improv wise, I'm not sure, but the one of my most memorable moments was when we were running one of my friends was running a Strahd campaign, and we were stuck in this tower with werewolves coming from the bottom and Strahd coming up from the top, and it was a TPK essentially. So we were having a bad time,
Mm.
and we were trying to survive, doing everything we can, putting out all the stops, and one of our player characters was a wild magic sorcerer. And we were all pretty much dead, and he procced his wild magic. So we're like, okay, this is it. This is going to save us. And essentially, he rolled to just puff in loads of confetti, flowers, and butterflies as we're all getting slaughtered by Strahd and his pack of wolves. So just a very funny image, and yeah, it's something that we still laugh about today.
We died, but it was pretty when
It
it
was
ended.
fun. Yeah, that's it. We looked good when we did it.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna tell me and he dropped the fireball on us all.
No, 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 it's better than that.
We in our first 5e campaign that I was running, we definitely had that happen. You know, a fight breaks out in the tavern, and the wild sorcerer mage is standing in front of the bar where all the liquor and booze is, and he rolls the on the wild mage chart and gets the fireball. And if it wasn't bad enough that the fireball went off in the tavern, it went off in front of all the booze and liquor. So I'm like,
That's
oh yeah,
it.
that's flammable. So for the next year, that tavern was being rebuilt
But
during the
yeah.
campaign.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah, so I love the wild mage sorcerer just for that. There's a lot of memorable moments that came from that. And I also whenever that player would use their Tides of Chaos, I'm just like, it automatically just resets. So I'd always make it available to them just so they could roll on the chart more. Plus,
That's a good idea. Yeah, I think we've done something different in this campaign where just to make it roll higher, the every time they use that, it goes up by one. So it's not just a natural one they need to roll it on. I think if it's two, every time they use
like
that,
a
it gets
doom
it
clock.
more and more and more. Yeah, yeah. So it just pops off more often, which is just, again, it's silly, but it's more fun. So he's lost his hair or his eyes turn blue, or they tend to be harmless effects, but they just give these little moments of combat or wherever you're doing a bit more flavor and a bit more comedic value.
I feel like if you're playing a wild mage sorcerer, you want to roll on that table. Like
But
there's no other
that's it.
real reason to
That's it.
play. Uh,
Yeah, that's it.
so as the DM, feel like I'm obligated to give them as many opportunities as possible to roll on that chart. Uh, and it's definitely one of the class features where it relies on the DM for them to get to use it more often because the DM says when it resets. So I'm just like, we'll just have it reset all the time. Anytime you want to roll with advantage, you can roll with
Yeah,
advantage, and then we get to see what happens.
that's it. That's it.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's kind of doom clock goes up and then you use it and then it resets and then it
yeah,
goes up again. So it happens, most often than not, and it's not something that I don't have to track it because the
yeah.
player's tracking it. So it's another one of those things that we can as a DM just palm it off onto the players to worry about, and then when it procs, they can let me know and we can go from there.
The other funny thing that happened was when that same player turned himself into a sheep, and then we had two goblin characters, goblin rangers, that were based off juggalos. I don't know if you have those in the UK.
Like male pimps.
No, no.
That's what a juggler is.
Oh, so juggalo. They're fans to a particular to the insane clown posse, and they have this
Okay.
like subculture, and it's really weird. Don't
Okay.
don't Google it. Whatever you do, I didn't know what it was until they kind of introduced it. But so they began. They like we want to ride we want to ride the sorcerer. Now that they're sheep, the sorcerer is trying to run away from battle, and they're jumping on top of the sheep. And I'm like, all right, I'm having them make animal handling checks opposed to the sorcerer so that the sorcerer could do what they want, and it kept failing. So they're riding the sheep through battle,
just running them around. Yeah, it definitely adds one of my favorite subclasses just for the sheer randomness of it. It does give those fun, cool moments, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. So you said you guys are currently running through Avernus. How far are you guys into it?
Yeah, nearly kind of getting into the end game now. So I think they're level 10. So it's not too far to go. So we've drawn in a lot of personal storylines. Each player normally has their own storylines that I like to incorporate into the game. So when we complete a campaign, there tends to be a couple of loose ends that we need to tie up. So yeah, they're not too far from the ends now, and it's all getting a bit crazy.
Yeah. So where to after you go to hell? Where do you go next?
That's it. That's the question. That's up to the players to decide, isn't it? We've got a couple of people in the party that maybe might want to stay or try and gain some kind of power. Others that want to do good things and leave as soon as possible. So there's a real different dynamic of what the characters want. So it'd be interesting to see what they choose, because Avernus gives a lot of a good options to kind of how to end the campaign. And they're all pretty epic in scale. You could side with, spoilers by the way, you could side with Tiamat, or just go for Zariel straight away, or there's a lot of other people and factions and powerful beings that they can talk to and make deals with.
So when you run, the official adventures, do you start a new game every time, or is it the same characters running through these different places?
Yeah, we tend to start a new a new game every time. I think one of the things that we all enjoy, like I said, we enjoy the role playing aspect of it a lot. So one of the things that we love to do is create these new characters and these new beings to kind of take their personas on and go from there. So yeah, we tend to do new characters. But you could easily run characters all the way through and just make the mobs a bit harder, or sort the combat encounters out. You could easily run it through to level 20 or and beyond if you wanted to. That wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, it's tough. Sometimes people just like to make characters and explore different avenues instead of playing the same thing. So with that mind and shifting gears a little bit, you guys actually have a Kickstarter going on right now that kind of falls right in line with someone who's making characters.
Yeah, definitely. So we've got a new Kickstarter at the moment that's called Ancient Lair. It's a custom 2D miniature website, essentially. So looking out at what's available at the moment, there's a lot of websites that do 3D models and all that kind of stuff, but we really wanted to create something that was really easy to use from a user perspective and create these 2D avatars of your characters or your NPCs. So we've got a concept at the moment on the Kickstarter page, and essentially the website is a base where you can select your race, you can sort out hair, face, armor options, weapons, all that kind of stuff. And once you're finished with that, you can then either print it just as a picture, or you can print it as a 2D miniature, or you can download it for Roll20, create tokens, or just have it on your character sheet as a kind of avatar, or to show your friends who you're playing with what your character looks like. There's even like an NPC creator in there, so if you wanted to get a couple of blacksmiths or barmaids or something made up, then you could easily do that and either print them off or just say the person you're talking to looks like this, because a lot of people like to use some visual aids. Mm-hmm. So it's just a website to just easily create those characters. That art, it's not specific to D&D, like you said. It could be used for any kind of tabletop fantasy genre game. But yeah.
Do you guys have any thoughts about adding other genres?
Yes, definitely. So we're in the early stages of the Kickstarter at the moment. So if we successfully get funded, we want to do monthly content drops. And we do have some stretch goals in mind if we get that far. But yeah, one thing down the road is definitely maybe sci-fi is the next most requested thing.
Yeah, we were looking at it, and you did some sponsorship with us, and we always look at look at what the sponsor's product is and go, is this something we think is cool and we can see people using in our game, to determine if we want to work with the brand or the company. And I was like, you know what, this is really cool, and for $80 you can get a lifetime membership to the website, which is pretty cheap considering if you're going to be playing games for a while. And there's the number of combinations. Do you know what the number is for combinations?
I don't. So we've actually worked with an artist called Omercan Siri, who's based in Glasgow. He's a Turkish artist, and he's created his repertoire is insanely good. So if you want to check him out on Instagram, then do so. He does a lot of sci-fi stuff as well. So hence why we've planned to add a lot of bits in for that. But at the moment, I think we've got somewhere in the region of around 600 assets complete.
Yeah.
Obviously, if the Kickstarter funds, will have a lot more. So yeah, I don't know. You're probably looking at a good thousands, tens of thousands, just with the kind of basic art that we've done just for the Kickstarter. So yeah, there's a lot of options on there, and there'll be a hell of a lot more to come.
We were being very, very conservative. We're like hundreds of options.
Hundreds, yeah.
But
there'd probably be a fair few more than that.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, we're looking at all the mixing and matching, and I think it's kind of a cool tool. Like we were talking about the other day, it's like if you run convention games and you want pre-gens, you could, it would be really easy to have the pre-gen characters and then, make the standees so that the players can have their characters and even
definitely.
even take it with them after the game's over. So it's like an inexpensive but cool kind of memento.
Yeah, and we've had a couple of people get in touch with us that kind of do things on DM's Guild and stuff like that. So you could have tokens, again, if you create a particular character, you can say, look, here's printable tokens that we've that come with the module, or they could use it for things like that as well, or just character art to shove into the PDF. So there's a few things that people are looking to use it for.
So where did the inspiration come for for this kind of a thing, for this website?
Yeah, so a lot of the Kickstarters that we run is stuff that kind of comes up at the table with us and my group of players. And one of the things we were talking about was running a game where you'd have a town or village setting with loads of people in loads of stuff, and we were talking about how it would be great to have all these 3D models and buildings and hundreds of these models and miniatures, but obviously it costs a massive amount to do that, and for most normal people it's not a viable option. So, and especially to paint them all, it takes a lot of time to build it, etc. So the idea came of, well, if we could have 2D miniatures that were relatively easy to put together on something maybe like a website or an app, then we could just easily throw X amount together. You've got your blacksmith, you've got your barmaids, you've got your guards, you've got a couple of other adventurers, your rival party, whatever you want, and you could easily just get that all up, print it on a couple of sheets, fold them over, and there you go. You've got something that resembles a good environment to kind of play with.
Now, does any of this have to do with any of the inspiration for this have anything to do with what's going on in the world today? And maybe we're not using 3D three-dimensional terrain and miniatures quite as much as we used to.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, so we've got you can make digital tokens in there, so if you want to import them into Roll20 or something, or you can just download the art itself and use whatever you prefer to use. But there's definitely this was in the works prior to COVID, so I can't say it was the full inspiration for it. But so it's definitely a lot easier to use 2D now than it is 3D, especially when everyone's doing things on webcam and in Roll20, etc. So it's a lot more accessible.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a great asset. It's easy, and sometimes too, like you mentioned the cost, but sometimes it's not even cost. Sometimes it's just like space and storage. It becomes the factor. Like, sure, maybe you can afford to have all the miniatures and 3D terrain, but at some point you got to put it someplace, and it's not always really portable. either. So like Ted loves using papercraft type stuff. 1985 Games puts out some great papercraft, uh,
They're
you
good
know,
guys there as well, yeah.
tiles, and he uses those all the time and talks about them all the time. And like this is also another thing that's a great complement to something like that, where you can like literally just put it in a binder or something or a trapper and carry it with you. You don't you don't need to rent a U-Haul to get your stuff to game.
That's it. So yeah. So the kind of the keys were to make it easily accessible, and however people would envision that, either portability or printing it, or easily to transfer it to digital, just to make sure that your character could come with you in some way, whether it's just going to be on your phone or you could print it off, and just have that really easy interface to use, and make sure that there's something that represents you at your game.
And also too, I like the idea of for the NPCs. I think it's a great tool where you can have a whole rogues gallery of NPCs that you're just like, and they look like this, and hold up your tablet or show your computer screen or whatever. And also like one of the things that we talk about making up and spending time prepping is like just random name generators. Well, here you could just have a bunch of actual random NPCs already generated. Not only do they have a name, but you also have the visual to go along with them. The players go someplace you weren't expecting, do something you didn't figure on them doing. Well, you got on your desktop or laptop or whatever, your phone, you've got a folder full of NPCs that are already made with a name and a picture and a portrait and everything, and you can just pull that out. So
Yeah.
it makes prep a lot easier.
Definitely, yeah. We use a lot of visual aids in our campaigns as well. As much as we try to describe them as good we can, sometimes people have different images in their heads. So if there's an important NPC, we tend to get some art from somewhere.
Nice. Yeah, so it's definitely a cool idea. Like I said, when yeah, you had approached us about it, and I was like, this is pretty nifty. And then for folks that are creating on the DMs Guild or on their own stuff, there's a commercial license, so and you can just use those if you need some fill in. It's actually an even better option than stock art in some cases. So anyone that's made anything knows that the art is one of the most expensive parts of it, and that can be very difficult when you're first getting started.
Definitely, definitely.
So what is there any stretch goals in particular that you're looking forward to?
So we haven't announced any stretch goals yet, but a lot of them are based around more additional options, and especially with races, armor packs and generators, that kind of thing, weapon packs and stuff like that we have planned. So we need to get fully funded in the
Yeah.
first instance, and then once we do, we can start looking at really expanding the library of art that we already have. And like I said, the point of this is to have it ever growing, to get a library that's kind of unrivaled in most 2D kind of avatar makers,
Yeah.
which there seems to be a limited quantity of anyway. So we really wanted to get this user friendly and work with the guys at Geared App, who make some tremendous stuff, and get it up and running for you guys to use.
Awesome. So how long has this project been in the works?
This project has been in the works probably just under a year now. So I'd say that most of our projects that we've done so far are kind of from conceptualization through to the Kickstarter take around a year, just to kind of flesh out what it is, how's
Hmm.
it going to work, making sure we have either prototypes or something to show the guys, getting all the videos ready and working through the Kickstarter stuff. It's a big chunk of work. So I'd say, and we're only a very small team as well, so it takes, yeah, probably about a year or so.
So, I'm just curious where you'll go next because all of your projects have been kind of vastly different than the last one. Do you, do,
Yeah.
do you like have the next few planned out, or is it kind of like as something comes up at your table, like we need to make this thing?
Yeah, so we once this one's over, once this one is, if it funds, and we can obviously work on, there'll be a massive amount of work on getting this developed, and getting all the art assets in place. So there'll be more kind of work to do after the Kickstarter. Whereas with our other kind of campaigns, we had all the design and the molding and stuff ready to go. They just needed X amount ordered to rock and roll. So this one's going to have a little bit of more of a kind of back end work for us. But yeah, we're always thinking of ideas and new things and stuff to come up with. We've had a couple of people wanting to do another campaign medals run with some of the other campaigns and modules and stuff. So yeah, we've always got some weird and wacky ideas, and I think that's what Kickstarter's for, right? It's for people, it's for finding something that you guys and that you enjoy and want to share with other people who may also want to enjoy it. So yeah, we're doing it for not only to create these cool additions to your games, but because we love doing it at the same time.
Awesome. And with what you're doing too is it's kind of a little bit insulated against changes in the industry, which is also nice. Because we've done a book. We're going to be doing. We got ideas for more books and more digital products, but we're always like in the back of our mind is like, well, what happens if something changes drastically in the industry? Where do you go from there? What do you do? So, I mean, we did kind of have an answer. We're like, maybe we should start doing events and have a convention, and we could do stuff like that. It seemed like a good idea at the time. So
not so much now.
Not so much now.
Yeah. And I think obviously you can only plan so much. No one knows what the future holds. In a couple of years' time, everyone could have 3D printing machines, and everyone could just go crazy with that for really cheap. But it's getting cheaper, isn't it? So there's so much that you can't plan for. So if you've got a cool idea, I'd say just kind of get pen to paper and bring it to life now.
Absolutely. So Joe wants to know, what's your favorite dragon?
Favorite dragon? That's a tricky one. Type of dragon? So I'd probably go for green. A green dragon, just because of their deceitfulness, and there's always a cool way you can incorporate them into the story to some way, shape, or form. Is that what you meant, or actual named fantasy dragon?
I think type, but yeah, or if you have a favorite named one, you can drop that too.
That's it's got to be Smaug, surely, right?
Smaug, nice. Although Cyan Bloodbane was a green, I believe. From Dragonlance, but it's also going back quite a ways too.
That's I don't think that's beyond my. I said very new here.
Yeah, I also like the green dragon. It's probably in my top 3 at the very least. Head fins never go out of style. So I had a question and it just kind of fell out of my head. Sorry about that.
Right, no, it's fine.
Yeah. So you said you guys are gaming like once a week. Is it?
Yeah, at the moment.
Is it all new gamers or newer gamers like yourself?
Yeah, so we all started roughly around the same time, about 4 or 5 years ago. So we're all from the same group. We've had a couple of people come and go since then. But yeah, I'd say we're all relatively new to kind of tabletop RPGs as a whole, effectively.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's not fair to say new, but 5e is your first edition.
Newish, so, yeah, that's it. So when you compare that this has been going on for how long it's been going on, we're relatively new to the world of it. We've tried a couple of others, like the Star Wars one. We've done a couple of one shots of, which seems quite good. So yeah, we haven't dabbled too much in one thing or another, because I think we've all been enjoying 5e so much. So, and there's a massive amount of content for it to kind of to work through.
Which version of Star Wars? The Fantasy Flight games?
No, it was the do you know what? I can't remember. It was the one we did, the kind of beginners set where you're kind of on Tatooine, and you're fighting off some of the mercenary lords there.
Did it have the custom dice?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that the Fantasy Flight one? Is it?
Yeah. There's been several iterations. Yeah, we played some of that. It was a lot of fun. And also too, like you mentioned, you have day jobs. We're busy, so learning a new system, it can be time consuming after you spend time learning the one you already learned.
Definitely, and then like I said, I think a lot of us enjoy whoever's DMing. has the kind of openness and the freedom to kind of incorporate a little bit of homebrew as much as they're comfortable with doing as well. So I think whoever's DM gets a lot of mileage out of that.
So, how often do you guys switch off DMs?
I think at the moment it's probably every 6 months or so. It takes us roughly to run a campaign. We had the Storm King's Thunder campaign took a lot longer because obviously it's a bit more open-ended, and
Yeah.
the DM put a lot of stuff in there for us, which was great. So I think that probably took just under a year or so to complete. So I know a lot of people kind of smash through the modules stuff,
Yeah.
but we do add quite a decent amount of content that's homebrew to it.
Well, it's not bad too. You get more bang for your buck then, you know. Uh,
Yeah, and I think we're getting a bit more experience now. Over the last like 3 years, people are a bit more confident with adding, separate storylines, creating their own NPCs, their own like little personal villains, and all that kind of stuff. So, it's been really good.
so, what's been your favorite character to play so far?
Uh, my own characters I've created.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite characters is Calrock the Barbarian. He's was from a very remote clan of other Goliaths. So moving into Waterdeep with his adventuring party was a whole new experience for him, and he basically started the adventure of just trying to find a boat. So a lot of it resolved around asking everybody and accosting everybody to give him a boat or put him in the direction of one. And it's just a very funny character, a little bit stupid because he's a barbarian. You got to play him like that. But yeah, I think he was probably my favorite character, who developed into like a clan leader kind of thing from this little bit of a stupid runt,
Yeah.
trying to get somewhere to this a bit of a beastly barbarian. He was good fun to play.
Well, you can play them that way. You don't have to. The group that we're playing in right now, the barbarian is the smartest character of the group.
A smart barbarian is be
Um,
interesting to play. But yeah, this one was just your classic barbarian really, but he was just very fun to just lower my IQ down and hit things first and ask questions later kind of thing.
when I say smartest though, I think that's still like a 12 or a 13.
Oh right.
But so the rest of us,
So not too smart.
yeah, yeah. I enjoy playing characters that have a lower IQ and kind of dipping down for the intelligence. Plus, it's a lot easier to play dumber than it is to play smarter.
Yes, very much so. Yeah, if you're an alchemist or something, you're going to have to
Uh,
do some homework around particular elements and stuff to make yourself sound smart if you're role
yeah,
playing.
for the barbarian, you just gotta be willing to hit things.
That's it. Yeah.
So, uh, do you have a favorite class or race?
Class, I think probably one of the favorites I've played is Monk.
Okay.
They tend to, from the way I built the characters that I used, they didn't do a massive amount of damage, but the mobility and the crazy stuff they could do was always really fun. Um, Race wise, I don't think they all kind of much of a muchness really. I don't think it makes too much a difference. But yeah, if you're playing the barbarian, then Goliath was a good choice.
Yeah. So, I played a Way of the Drunken Master Monk, and they are just ridiculous for mobility and not being there to hit. So I had a lot of fun with that. Of course, it was a turtle as well. Uh,
Oh, that's very cool. Cool idea.
yeah, it was basically the opposite of what is it, Yugway from Kung Fu Panda.
Very cool.
Instead of being wise and insightful, he was usually drunk and laying on his back,
Brash.
laying on his back, drinking while fighting. So
That's very cool. Yeah, I got a lot of flack for playing the monk. That was one of the characters in the Curse of Strahd campaign. So I was always the first in because I could get there, and
yeah,
then I'd always be the first out because I'd take all the hits and be nearly dead by the time everyone's at the fight. So I'd be legging it out. So but yeah, they were good fun to play.
yeah, the cleric must have loved you.
We didn't actually have a cleric at the time. But that was one of the first campaigns that we played, so we didn't really have an idea of, a paladin or a cleric would be a good to have in this shadow realm. So we all went in a bit But
I,
yeah, but
I
blue eyed.
am playing Curse of Strahd currently. I am the cleric, but I'm playing a human that was raised by goblins, and he's a cleric of Maglubiet. So I'm always trying to convert people from Barovia to Maglubiet, and I keep, espousing the virtues of, in the afterlife, fighting in the eternal war versus goblins versus orcs, and I've yet to get any takers, but I keep trying.
I loved Barovia as a setting is just fantastic. The dreariness of it and the darkness of it could really create some fantastic atmosphere.
So yeah, it is. We're having a lot of fun with it. DM Jazzy Hands is our GM, and it's funny. I'm one of the more tankier characters, but he always hides in the back, and he always has because he kind of acts like a goblin. So uh,
Scared of getting up front.
yeah, that also he's kind of chosen like the worst person in the party as the leader of the party because he feels like they're the most goblin like, and that's how a goblin would lead.
That's it. That's it. Have you played Strahd before, or is this your first time going
This
through it?
is actually my first
Okay.
official setting or official adventure in 5e.
Oh, okay.
We've done mostly homebrew, um, and so this group is like mostly a bunch of like creators, and we like do a Saturday offline game. And we started with Wildmount, which was run by James Intercasso, and he ran us through the Frozen Sick, which was the adventure that he wrote.
Hmm.
And then one of the players, like in the middle of that, was like, I would really like to play Curse of Strahd. I've never played that. And so one of the other players was like, oh, I'll GM that after that. So, at the end of the Frozen Sick, we all get sucked into Ravenloft,
Nice.
and we've been playing there. It took us like 4 or 5 sessions to get out of Valaki. Like
Hmm.
we were like
Takes a while, yeah.
the DM was just like, finally, I thought you guys would never leave.
Takes a while to get going, I think, but once you get going, it's fantastic. And what I don't want to spoil anything for you, but there's
Yeah.
so many great locations in
Oh
there. One
yeah,
in
yeah. Well,
particular,
that's not even where we started. That was like the second spot we ended up.
yeah,
And and we already knew like several places to go, but we just kind of kept dicking around in Valaki and trying to do things there. So yeah, we just discovered that is it and
Aurelia.
Aurelia. Yeah, we just discovered their connection by accident. So, in a very unusual way that I don't think the GM was expecting. So like they never came in contact with each other, and then we like discovered that he's obsessed with her, and then one of the players is a changeling and will often assume the form of something we're talking about in the conversation, and then so the changeling assumed the form of is it, and then Aurelia went into this kind of catatonic state, and then another player, the bard, decided to cast detect thoughts on her at the time. So yeah, so
Oh,
it's
wow,
kind of
that's cool.
taking some twists and turns. Thankfully, I have the Curse of Strahd, but I have not read it. So yeah, so I'm discovering everything new, along with everyone else, and it's been a blast to play.
Yeah, and I think that's also a great campaign for. Have you done the tarot reading yet?
Yes,
Yeah, so in that campaign, the items and stuff like that can be in different locations. So it
yeah,
can really,
change.
depending on how you do the tarot reading and what you get, it can really change it up and make it tricky or easy or somewhere in between.
Yeah, we had Mark Humes on the other day, and he was telling us that like he ran that, and one of his players has run it before too, so he changed up some things to make it different for them. And they were playing Avastani, so during the tarot reading, he actually had um, the madam assassinated, and with her dying breath, like she gives the cards to him to finish the reading.
That's cool.
Yeah, so and that's one of the cool things about this hobby is like even when you think you know what's going on, maybe not so much because it's so open ended. It's not like a video game where it's going to play through the same way every time.
That's it. And I think the DM and the players have the ability to, subvert expectations every time.
Yeah. So of the campaigns you've either run or run through, do you have a favorite?
Um, yeah, I'd probably say Strahd was probably my favorite, just for the moments that we had in there and the it's a hard camp. The way our DM ran it was hard, encounters and stuff like that
Hmm.
is meant to be an unforgiving place. I just really enjoyed the setting of it, the werewolves, the vampires. It's quite gothic in nature, and it just really kind of connected with the group. um, and yeah, the group of characters that we had run through it was just really good time, and the ending was the DM kind of put his own little twist on it, and it yeah, it went sideways for some of us very
Yeah.
quickly.
It's Ravenloft. It's supposed to go sideways.
It always went sideways, but it went major sideways. So yeah, the DM kind of gave us an ultimatum with Strahd, and you could kind of side with him if you wanted to,
Mm.
or you could carry on if you wanted to. So some of the party decided to join him, and some of the party decided not to. So it ended up in a bit of a mass brawl, which was exciting.
Nice. Did you survive the brawl?
Barely, but I only think that's because the DM was being nice, and he's a monk, so he can
Run
run a
away.
million times a mile an hour. Yeah, so he just had to try and find his way through Strauss Castle without getting too destroyed.
Yeah, I think one of the coolest things about Ravenloft, and one, there's a lot of nostalgia there for the older players who've been playing for a while, but that was like one of the first adventures where they did the really cool isometric cutaway castle map for Ravenloft. And then if you're into Ravenloft, anyone really, and you might even be able to get this stuff on the DMs Guild as PDFs, but the Ravenloft box set stuff and the Ravenloft early edition stuff was really good. And most of it, I feel like you could convert over to 5e fairly easy if you wanted to play like a whole game in Ravenloft, and include the other Dark Lands and Dark Lords. Also, there's also some really good writing in from TSR at the time in the Ravenloft campaign setting.
Yes, yeah, I've not checked out all the older versions, so it might be something to kind of get reading. Because yeah, the most recent one was fantastic, and I think there was some kind of some foresight to say that they might be revisiting it at some point with either new stuff or a new adventure in there, which would be really good.
Well, there's definitely room to revisit it because, especially if you want to run more versions of horror, right? Because I feel like where Ravenloft was very, it was very like gothic horror, but you had other areas in the campaign setting that would be different types of horror depending on the Dark Lord that ruled that domain. And it was just like, and that was like one of the cool things about Ravenloft was you would they would just keep adding new Dark Lords, or you could even become one. Like if the Dark Powers would offer gifts to the players, and if you accepted too many of those gifts and you ever walk through the mist, you might find yourself in your own domain and not be able to get out. I mean, you get uber powers, but you're now one of the Dark Lords, and
Yeah,
you're kind of stuck.
yeah, and that may have happened to one of our party members.
So it was kind of cool to have all the rules for that, and the story for it as well. um Lord Soth was like one of my favorite like baddies from back in the day. And he came from Dragonlance and ended up with his own domain. So like they're pretty good novels to read. If you like that style, it was pretty cool. And it had like kind of an epic ending to it, so which I won't spoil here in case anyone wants to check it out. But Knight of the Black Rose and Lord Soth, I believe, were the two Ravenloft books. Do you read much fantasy?
I don't have a massive amount of time to read, but I listen to a lot of audio books. It's just easier during the workday or when traveling around. So I've recently finished the most recent book in the Stormlight archives. I think it was called Oathbringer.
Okay,
I'm not sure
listening
if you've read
and
those.
listening counts absolutely. I there. Thank God for Audible. I just finished up the last trilogy from R.A. Salvatore in his Corona world, which I've already forgotten the name of it because my memory is so terrible. But yeah, like if you enjoy RA stuff, if you check out his non Forgotten Realm stuff, it's fantastic.
Nice. Might have to do that.
So yeah, so it's like they a lot of the main characters are these Belgian monks, and they're kind of like martial arts monks, but with magic, and they use these like magic gemstones. And you know you can't they can't use magic without the gemstones, but only certain people are actually able to tap into them to use the magic, and certain gemstones do certain things, and then you know you can combine them to get these like you know different effects. So it's kind of cool. I've had a lot of fun visiting that world with the you know the different take on magic.
Yeah, sounds cool.
So we are coming up on the end. Any final thoughts before we head on out?
There's nothing from me. It's just been a pleasure to have a chat for an hour, to be honest, Dave. It was good, good conversation. And like I said, thanks for the help with the Kickstarter, which again we're still currently live. We've got about 27 days to go. I think we've only been live just under a week. So if anyone has any questions around it, then feel free to just jump over and type in the comment section, or just get in touch through Instagram or Facebook.
And all those links are down in the description. And once this is done being live, it'll be in the pinned comment. Thanks for coming on, Shane. I appreciate it. It's been great chatting with you. And until next time, everyone, stay nerdy.